Hello, everyone. Waiting for attendees to trickle in here. I know it can take a few seconds as we come over out of the previous sessions and the break time. We're just going to let a few more seconds elapse before we get something of a critical mass and we'll get going here. Now it looks like people are coming in. All right, wonderful. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us here at CData Foundations Day 1. I am Andrew Peterson, Senior Product Marketing Manager here at CData. Our next section is going to turn to the retail sector, where we're going to hear how a heritage brand is using modern data pipelines to adapt to new customer expectations. So I'm pleased to introduce Buck Debnam, Replication Manager and SQL Developer and wearer of many other hats at Red Wing Shoes. Buck's going to share how Red Wing has redesigned its data flows to support a new point of sale system and deliver a unified view of operations into Microsoft Fabric. So with that, Buck, welcome to Foundations. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and your background?
Thanks, Andrew. I got started in IT professionally in 1993 after I graduated Brown with a AS in electronics technology. That got me my first interview, and I haven't used it since. But I started at Travelers Express answering phones so the support guy could do the work. That after 2 years developed into a help desk with 4 people when I moved on to C.H. Robinson at the help desk. I started doing some QA, learned SQL when we migrated from 6.5 to 7, which will tell you how long I've been in it. Learned to use ASP, how to hook that to the database, to .NET, ASPX, etc. 2009, I moved over to Red Wing Shoes doing support, started doing SSIS, SQL tuning, and started working with DBAMP with Bill Emerson back in 2012, which was actually before CData owned it. And now I'm working on enhancing our security in SQL, learning Purview, and I manage all the replication. And I still do some SQL as needed.
Excellent. All right. Well, before we get into more of the Red Wing story, I want to give you a high-level overview of our agenda. So 5 main things that Buck's going to walk us all through. The first one is the challenge of the fragmented data across the retail, point of sale, ERP, cloud systems. Second, why was now the right time for Red Wing to adapt its data foundation and really support this growth in data consumption? And the third point, how CData pipelines into Microsoft Fabric have enabled a unified view of retail and supply chain operations. And then we'll get into what do those real-time insights look like. We'll get a peek at a couple Red Wing dashboards, and then a look into the future of where Buck and the team at Red Wing hope to go next. And then we'll have time at the end, hopefully, for some Q&A. So if you have questions as you watch this session, please enter them either in the chat to the side of your screen here or in the Q&A panel, and we will get to those questions, as many as we have time for, at the conclusion of today's presentation. So with that, Buck, why don't you tell the folks out there a little bit about who Red Wing Shoes is?
Red Wing Shoes was founded like one of the other sessions in 1905, which I found interesting. We are headquartered in Red Wing, Minnesota. We've got 500 stores out there, along with some retail locations that sell our shoes that are owned by somebody else. We are well known for our work and protection equipment in industry, along with some of our more classic, what we would call heritage, dressier type of things. We work all the way from bringing in the leather to manufacturing, distributing the shoes. And so supply chain is a big deal for us. We are very committed to quality product. And that's probably something that anybody that knows Red Wing knows, that you buy them, they're going to last. And that's what we pride ourselves on, is it's a good quality product.
Excellent. So you've been using other tools in the past, and CData's DBAMP product, one of those, but still there were some fragmented systems and some reporting challenges. So can you walk us through kind of what it was that that really kind of caused this to bubble up and seek, an alternate way of doing things?
Well, our system is about 85% hybrid. Um, we had a POS system that was a central server with all the stores having their own version of SQL. And so we had to migrate data from those servers back to the central one and then to our data warehouse server for reporting, supply chain, planning, logistics, everything else. We were going to move to a new POS system, or we have moved to a new POS system, but that requires a much faster response. And so we started looking around and found CData Sync. Some of the problems that we had is a truck, for example, could go out on a delivery run. It would leave Monday, come back on Friday, and plug the laptop into the store, and you would get sales data from Monday and Tuesday, etc. So sales data was always out of sync. If a store didn't do its end of day, we didn't get the data till the next day. So reporting can only report on what it's got. So there was always issues of didn't do it before the day, didn't do it during that month, etc. So we've traditionally used SSIS to move data. That requires a lot of time with developers. We have an AS400 ERP system, so you've got to move data in and out of that for other, business reasons. So there's a lot of data in a lot of locations, and it's very, very fragmented and a lot of things moving, 1,000 SSIS packages doing ETLs across the company.
Yeah, and your story with the truck driver. So the truck is out going site to site making sales, disconnected, and this is in the past, previously disconnected from the inventory system, or it was a point in time, look at inventory when they left, when their truck first departed. So getting back and then syncing everything up, all that data would be outdated and inventory may not match orders placed.
Exactly.
Great. I think that's a great way to kind of set the scene.
Especially if they were out over a month end.
Hmm.
Because you'd have your month end snapshot and suddenly you've got sales from the prior month that's not in your month end snapshot. So data would not be accurate for those. So
yeah,
a lot of issues.
A lot of accounting headaches. Yeah, for sure. All right. So you knew the challenges. Now let's walk through kind of what were your non-negotiables. Like looking at a system, nobody wants to go out and buy software if it's not going to meet their needs. So you wanted to understand, how a piece of software might best meet your needs. So what were those requirements on the Red Wing side?
Well, like I said, we're hybrid. So we've got data that we need for on-prem SQL, Salesforce, Azure SQL, and Fabric. So we needed something that could connect to all of those locations, something that could be easily managed without a large investment. Like I said, we've got 1,000 SSIS packages. Every one of those takes a developer's time. We didn't want anything that required excessive permissions. Some software you need to be SA on the server, or you can only have a single account for all of your connections, and that was a problem for us. And because we're not that big, we need a reasonable price. We couldn't afford a $200,000 or $500,000 a year type product that some of the big companies can do.
Absolutely. And that's also then something that could grow with you. And as your data consumption and volumes grow, that tool is going to grow with you and not have see your prices explode. So kind of the right side of this table, what was it about CData that met these needs?
Well, I think the big things were that we could set it up, and once I get the connectors put in place, we could have a BSA manage and set up the data flows that didn't require them waiting on me to write code or a developer to write an SSIS package to move data from one system to another. That was a big one. The fact that it has more than one endpoint connector was another one. Some products only allow a single point source, single point target, and you pay for every combination. And we're effectively Cartesianing a lot of this because we're using Salesforce to multiple targets, Fabric to multiple targets, on-prem to Fabric will be Salesforce and on-prem. So we're moving data around in order to enable better reporting and better management. And Sync was awesome for that. And it's fast because I think the biggest thing for that is it works with the deltas. It recognizes incremental changes where most of our other packages had to be kill and fill. We were moving millions of rows of data for 4 changed rows. And in Fabric, that's compute. And that costs money. And when you run your compute to 100%, anybody that's done it knows you start to throttle. And when you throttle, everything gets delayed. And that can be, that can affect the business.
Yep. And then can you get into a little bit more detail on the ability to self-host? Obviously, you've talked about having sprawling hybrid architecture. So having a cloud-hosted tool was not optimal.
Not really. At this point, we do host on-prem. It allows us to manage there without having to set up a lot of infrastructure or punching holes in firewalls to allow things to move around through, security is a big deal. We have dealt with cyber incident before, and so we're very, very conscious of that type of issues. And we don't want to have to open things up, and CData allowed us to use connectors that we can protect. We don't have to open things up to allow it to do what it needs to do. And so that makes it very easy, and we can ramp up the server if we need more resources, and it's a lot easier for us to manage in the long run. At some point, we may go, well, when everything gets in the cloud, CData will probably move to the cloud, but until we can get there, this works best for us.
Right, the ability to meet you where you are. Excellent. And then
exactly.
I know this was one feature again of the CData Sync product that Red Wing is using. So tell the audience a little bit about the workspaces feature, which was not part of the product when you purchased it, but was rolled out a couple quarters back.
The workspaces is nice because when I was first setting it up, I've got about 65 jobs in the default workspace. Trying to figure out which job I need to get to, try to do it by name and stuff like that, but you still have 65 jobs in a single workspace in the default one. So I've set up different workspaces. So all of our Fabric movement, either in or out of Fabric, is in a single workspace. We'll be doing the same thing with Salesforce, etc., as we start getting doing some more movement, and as I start replacing some of our SSIS packages that are moving data from the plant or from our outside other locations back to on-prem, I'll be able to put that into a workspace. So that one allows me to kind of have a better idea of what's what. And also when we start giving the admins the ability to do jobs and manage jobs, we can give the security to an admin to just their workspace. The BSA for our retail stuff doesn't necessarily need to have the manufacturing, etc. So that will help in the long run for being able to, security again, like I said, is a big deal for us.
Right. Governance plays a role across all data, even if you don't always think about it necessarily as like a key piece of data pipelines. So, all right. So with the implementation of CData Sync, then I wanted to give the audience a look at a couple of your different BI dashboards. So can you tell folks what we're looking at here and how that data is pulled in from different sources?
So this pulls in our sale, it's a sales bestsellers. So it summarizes data from at this, it's kind of a description of the type of product it is, as far as for industrial or different things like that, to say, hey, these types of products are what we're selling, um, by business unit or by, say, steel toe or something, so that it helps them understand what they're doing. They can drill in there. And so it's pulling data from our online sales, our old POS system, because you'll notice it's looking a year back, but our POS started rolling out earlier, 6 months ago. So it's got to mix the data, and then it's also getting data from our online, our new POS system that's cloud-based. So it's just a way for them to understand what's happening on a quick view.
Yeah, that's interesting too, right? That given the time period, it's looking at the previous POS system and the new POS system. Can you talk about what that rollout was like? Because you mentioned the 500 stores implementing that new POS system. What were the challenges there? What really facilitated, keeping on schedule with that?
We were using DBAMP. When we started using DBAMP, it was a query tool to allow us to bring data on-prem for a couple BSAs to do queries. It turned into an enterprise level data system, but the old style DBAMP, we had coded against some of the columns being true and false and things that DBAMP updated as it went. We didn't keep up with it. Sync allows the deltas, and so we were able to get data down and moving every 15 minutes instead of every hour. And when our POS system rolled out, they had to get data from Salesforce into the POS in order to do the migration. And they couldn't wait. We had people literally in the store twiddling thumbs until that data moved. And 15-minute roll versus an hour plus was a significant change for them. It allowed us to get those out. We were pushing 40 stores a week, which is a pretty good turnover.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, we've got one more dashboard to look at as well. How is the data in this dash different from the previous?
This is more at the overall, as you can see, footwear versus apparel versus accessories, etc. We have a lot of different things that we put. We do PPE for oil and gas overseas, or also local, footwear, etc. But you'll also notice that this goes back several years. So again, it's integrating data that's older, and the users can drill in as they need if they want to see what trends are happening. You can see on the right-hand side, the footwear by features. It's a different view, but all of this data is being brought in, and it allows them to make decisions much better because they've got current data. They're not wondering, is the data right, which is the biggest question against reports that you'll ever find. Is my data good?
Yep. How can I trust this? Absolutely. So this slide just kind of summarizes. You told the story about the truck driver going out in the field to take orders. So going from those week-long waits to now, you mentioned every 15 minutes getting those updates.
Yeah, it's as the data comes into the systems, we're pulling it down from Fabric onto on-prem. Right now, most of our reporting is based on-prem, and eventually we do want to go to Fabric, and I think that's where Sync will come into play. Is as I can migrate data from on-prem into Fabric, and they build reports in Fabric. When the source data is in Fabric, then we don't have to. They're used to going out there. Right now, they're used to going on-prem, so it'll allow us to get to Fabric much smoother than what you would do normally if you just had to waterfall and all your shortcuts are gone. Go to the new one. Doesn't work well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to give folks some context, CData Sync has had a Microsoft Fabric, what Microsoft calls open mirroring connection, for the last quarter. And you've started to use that some. What's that experience been like to be able to mirror the data from these different systems into Fabric?
It's great because right now I'm setting up. We just went back and looked at some of the SSIS packages that they're moving, and I'm switching those over to run in with the mirroring. In the mirror, you move it to a mirror database. You create a shortcut in your lake to use that mirror. So for anybody that's in SQL, you think of it as a view. You don't have to worry about kill and fill. It's moving deltas. And probably the biggest thing that we've noticed is anything that I've moved to sync, our compute has dropped for that process, which means that the compute can then be used for other things like regular reports or processes, notebooks. And so we're able to utilize our compute for something more than simply moving data.
Absolutely. All right. Excellent, Buck. Well, we just want to give folks a look. Will you talk a little bit about kind of, all right, you've gotten to this point in time. Sounds like you're still somewhat early days with migrating data into Microsoft Fabric. What are those next steps to help Red Wing maximize its use of all this data?
I think there's a lot of initiatives, but I think overall, eventually we're going to go to Fabric. I think everybody that uses Microsoft SQL will eventually be in Fabric, or so this will allow us to get there much cleaner because we'll be able to move data out to Fabric and allow us to use it there. We're going to be using Azure SQL, or as we can slowly migrate off of that, move all of that into there. We're going to be moving data from our plants and facilities, manufacturing, shipping data, moving a lot of that off of current SSIS and a lot of heavy SQL movement to migrating it in much more real time. Our customer experience right now has a 24-hour wait to find out about a UPS number for something being shipped. When I can get it set up with this, they'll be able to get it within 15 minutes of a package being scanned for shipping. They'll be able to tell the customer what that number is. That's what we're looking to use Sync for, is to get this data back and let people use it much faster. And anything we can get to Fabric, move it there so that eventually we will be all Fabric. Other than our plants, we'll have to write some software that uses Fabric out there, but it's
Right.
That's the plan.
Yeah, solving for things in stages, certainly. All right.
Exactly.
Well, we're down to our last couple minutes. If anyone in the audience we might be able to squeeze in one question here in our last couple minutes. I don't see anything at the moment. While we wait for one, Buck, and before I need to save about 30 seconds for a wrap up, I'm curious though how you handled schema evolution as your POS and ERP systems changed, and how Sync was able to handle schema changes.
Well, Sync does it natively. That's one of the things that was causing the big problem with the SSIS packages, because if anybody's written one of those or worked with those, when you set a data flow task up, you define the table or the object that you're moving, and you say it's a varchar or string 10. And if they change it to a 12, you have to redeploy the package, where Sync picks that up natively. And that's been the greatest thing. And with Salesforce, they add a new column, it's automatically put in, and I don't have to worry about it. Where before I'd have to add it to a package in order to get that to be pulled down properly and migrated to the other servers or into another system, which is always the delay in taking developer time to move data that Sync doesn't. We don't have to do that anymore, and that's a big savings in the long run for us.
Excellent. Well, in summary, thank you very much, Buck, for walking us through Red Wing's data transformation. As we come out of this session, we'd like to hear from everyone in the audience. We'll be launching a live data market survey, so you can take a chance to respond. and see the results appear on the screen before we wrap up day one with 2 closing keynotes. Thank you.